to try to find out is how long.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Brian.
first thing I'll try to do is figure out how long you've been in business. Ideally, we're looking at 2 years. And that's where we're starting off. We're wanting to, and I have solutions to offer for those that are starting up, so don't panic. But ideally, we're looking at 2 years, 2 years in business, and I'm going to want to see your, to start off with. I like to find out about you, when you started your business, who your management is, what your products are, what your competitive advantages are. This is conversation. I do eventually got to I need to find out what your credit score is because we're looking at about a 675 minimum. Uh, there's a little bit of play there, but for the most part, you need about a 675 minimum. And if it's not there, we've got to figure out what's affecting it and what we can do to try to help, alleviate some of those risks and get the scores up eventually. And I've walked people through that, which they've eventually, maybe they didn't come out of the gate and get the loan, but 2 or 3 months later, they were ready.
Okay.
And then after that, sorry, go ahead.
So it goes with the credit, of course, credit first, contacting a lender, making sure that we've got something that you can look at, get you started. If not, you can sure help and direct them on how they can get a commercial loan. Then the next things would be what loan fits for them.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about the request, and so if in the case of such as commercial real estate acquisition, we're going to be looking at what kind of a structure will match your cash flows. We've got products structured from 10, 15, even up to 20 years. Rates vary. There's not a rate. Rates vary. Right now, roughly, you're looking at and I don't want to really get into that, but it's a range. The Wall Street Prime is, we're measuring off of Prime. Wall Street Prime right now is 8.5.
Okay.
And I kind of always like to let everybody know, especially on a commercial property, it's not a mortgage. You're going to be looking at on a conventional commercial real estate acquisition. It's going to be between 15 and 20-year term.
Okay. And then also, the next question is, how much do we have to have down to start our business? How much do I need down?
On a conventional loan, we're going to be looking at 20% down.
Okay.
And that right there, a lot of times is a barrier to entry. That is the reason why. That's one of the reasons, let's just say it's not exclusively the reason, but one of the reasons why there is the SBA 504 product, which I can also, I have SBA credentials and I can also walk you through that process. We have an SBA department at Prosperity.
I love that.
And you would be looking at roughly at about 13% of the project all said and done if you qualified for the 504 program.
Okay. So here's it in a nutshell. You come in, you have an idea, you share it with you, we talk about it, my financials are good, my credit's good, I'm ready with the 20% down or whatever. You say, okay, this loan would work best for you. We sit down, we strategize, we get the money for 20 years, and we know what we're going to have to pay our banker every month. We know because you strategize that. I have a payment to pay off.
Yes.
No penalty to pay it off early necessarily. I can do that if my business is going great.
No penalty on a conventional.
Okay.
I do want to make that clear. There is a prepayment penalty in the 504 program. Yes.
Okay, so that's a little bit different, but we're just
Can
talking.
you see me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Sorry, somebody's trying to call in right now. Sorry about that.
That's okay. It'll call and then it'll black out. I mean, it'll go back to normal, but you're there all the time.
Okay.
And then when we finish with that, when we talk about a commercial loan process, I always think of it taking a lot longer, Brian. What do you have to say from start to finish? How many days to execute that particular loan?
I mean, honestly, I try to tell people, plan for 45 days.
45.
And that's if you get on it. I mean, that's if you get on getting me what I need. Because, I always like to tell everybody, it's kind of like what you do at your job. I'm not sitting around waiting on your request. we've already got requests in process that are going, and we're working through to get to those. So to start off with, you're probably on average looking at, it could be 4 to 5 business days before we're going to get to the request that you bring in.
Okay.
As we finish up the stream of requests that are already going. After that, I mean, once we start the process, if all goes well and you've gotten me everything I need, I mean, we can get you, we can get you in front of a loan committee, ideally inside of, another 5 business days.
What does that mean? Loan committee. You just hit on something. What does that mean to the person that's outside a commercial lender's world?
Well, we have various types of loan committees depending upon the size of the request.
Okay.
But once like just for instance, just to say internally what we do, once you get beyond 100,000, you have to have a second signature. And once you get beyond 500,000, it requires another rank of an officer. I mean,
Oh,
we just have certain benchmarks for, it kind of comes under a different level of scrutiny. Once it gets to 1 million, let's say, just as an example, that goes before an even bigger committee.
okay.
So, under $1 million, you might be looking at, you'll have about 3 eyeballs on it. And it requires, from 100,000 to 1 million, it's a different level of officer that would have to sign off.
Okay. Okay. So
Once
all
you
that,
get to 1 million, you're looking at you could have, a dozen eyeballs on it. So
so that means that can still be expedited in 45 days for a commercial loan.
ideally,
Okay.
if all goes really, really well.
Okay. Okay, so they can still get a loan. So what would be your average loan, would you say, out here in the Midland, Odessa area? What do you think that is? 250, 300 that people need to start up a business? Hard
Well, I
question,
mean,
but
realistically, it's going to just depend
okay.
on what they're doing. I mean, because it's there's not. I mean, I'd love to nail it down and hit you, with well, this is exactly the average. I mean, I can think, the average loan that I do is, between 500,000 and 1 million.
Wow. All right.
But
So
but the loan amounts don't really. I mean, I've done loans for $50,000. I've done loans, at other institutions for up to 7 million.
So if somebody
So
come in at 100,000, they started up, they cut themselves short on their funding and they need an additional 100,000. Do they have to start all over with the additional $100,000, or do we
say
just,
that again. I'm sorry.
if they start off with $100,000, they get the loan approved, we got the business, we got the storefront, we got everything going, and now they've cut themselves short, they're going to need additional monies for their business. How does that work into play? Do they just come back to you and say, I need additional money?
Well, you're talking about more of a working capital loan in
Oh,
that,
I see.
and
Completely different.
that's going to be a different loan facility.
Okay.
Which again, that's a conversation that ideally, if the loan officer does their job, they're already going to anticipate that, because if you got a guy coming out of the gate, and let's say it's just his first commercial building purchase, or he may be constructing, his purchasing the land and then construction. You're gonna try to ascertain what his cash injection is going to be into that, what his operations are going to look like at day one once they get into this property, and what their cash needs are going to be going forward. So a good loan officer, I would say, is going to be anticipating if there's also going to be a working capital need.
Gotcha.
If it, let's just say, for instance, if it didn't happen, well, then they would have to come back in and revisit. We'd have to see how we could structure a working capital loan, but that'd be a second facility.
Interesting. Interesting. It's so, it's not just a slam dunk. It's not just a quick, let's do this and fill this application out and be done. Commercial is so much more intense, I feel like.
I mean, and I think it's just more involved. I mean, I think that, the business owner understands their business. I understand banking, and you rarely do. You're dealing with individuals that, I mean, rarely, but it does happen, but rarely, if you've got an individual been in business for, starting business or been in business certainly a year or more, they're not just absolutely, completely ignorant of, what they're, how, the commercial banking world. I mean, and so sometimes they are, but very rarely if they've just never talked to a banker. But, kind of backing up, I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this, but the mortgage is, compared to just a regular, real estate 1-to-4 residential mortgage. I mean, that sort of is a one-off transaction done. Commercial banking is more, commercial loans are pretty much more, it's sort of like cooking. You've got to have, you have to, some of this and some of this and some of this. I don't know if that makes
Got
any
it.
sense.
That
Yeah.
does. That does. That makes total sense. I mean, you
Yes.
just got to keep building on your portfolio, so to speak.
Well, yeah, and I would say it's just in terms of, analytics goes. I mean, I think it's sort of a better example would be, it's just layered. It's not just,
Okay.
it's a layered analysis.
Beautiful.
Is that how I'd more like to put it? There's, credit score is not going to make the deal. It can kill it, but it certainly is not going to be sufficient. And that's not meant to intimidate anybody. It's just simply, I would be able to care. I think, walk the business owner through the process and be able to explain to them, everything that's going to be required. But, it's multifaceted, I guess you'd say. And that's a simple way of putting it. It's not just one aspect, two aspects. Credit score, cash flow is a little bit more than that.
Okay. So I guess it just depends on the loan. If I'm asking for $100,000, you just give me that $100,000 and I start writing checks. I need to note to you, make the payments over the next 10, 15 years. And then I'm done. I'm done paying you unless I come back to the bank and want additional money for whatever it may be. The loan is good, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and I mean, I think you were. I mean, yes. I mean, just a simple answer to that is absolutely correct. Yes, you have it. It's basically promissory note. The contract is stipulated clearly. Once that note is done, basically, for instance, in the case of a property, the property is yours, and that's that. Yes.
It's done. And then you can use it as collateral or come visit with you because you're going to open another location and or you're going to build onto that or do whatever
Yes.
it may be. But for the most part, just simple, cut and dry. I go borrow $100,000. I pay it all back within the years that I stated. And then it's mine. It's mine. And
Correct.
keeping that relationship with my banker, letting them know if we were to open a second location, that obviously looks great. To get
Absolutely.
home. So,
Right. And usually, I mean, if you've, I've kind of found if you've developed a good relationship with the customer, and as their business begins to grow, somewhere between, the inception of that loan and the maturity of it, usually they're coming to you for some additional credit so they can help expand their business even further. So
wait.
very rarely have I ever just done a one-off loan for a developed relationship.
So tell me, Brian, how can somebody get a hold of you? And then what are the top 3 things that you want them to bring with them or have together to meet with you? What would you like to see?
Well, I mean, you can go ahead and I mean, I usually provide the forms. I mean, if you want to go ahead and
Okay.
bring your, to get a hold of me, I'd say my cell phone number is 432-803-7503. Excuse me, let's say that again. 432-803-7503. Feel free to call or text. Basically, at this point, calling or texting does work. Although you will be getting a call back from me. I like conversation. I like for you to come in if possible.
Okay.
And then if you want to go ahead and bring your 2 most recent years of tax return, business and or personal, if separate, that'd be one way to start, and your personal financial statement if you have it. But if not, I've got forms for you. We'll go from there. And then after that, we just go with a conversation from that point on. Then I send the email out. A lot of times I'd like to say, don't worry necessarily about bringing anything if you don't have it.
Okay.
We'll just talk.
Oh,
But if you want to go ahead and cut to the chase, you can bring your last 2 years of tax returns.
okay. Perfect, Brian. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time today. Brian with Prosperity Bank, and we will talk to you soon, sir.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.